At the moment, free parking means it's free for everyone, and until we don't have all of Gibraltar zoned, it would be very impossible. It would be impossible to actually say, certain cars can park and certain cars cannot park. Once Gibraltar is completely zoned, then we can take the decision on whether it'll be people with a zone permit, regardless of what zone they belong to, can use that free parking. So the intention would be that there's cross-fertilization between zones, and people that live in zone 1 can park in zone 2 and can park in zone 3 or wherever. They want using these free parkings, which will be for people with permits. So in effect, Gibraltar becomes a residential zone in its own right completely.
Now, one of the key points with launching the zone parking scheme was to reduce the number of cars on the roads in Gibraltar. Do you have any evidence that the number of cars on the roads in Gibraltar have actually gone down?
I wouldn't be able to see whether, or tell whether cars have reduced. I think what's happening is, in fact, we may have seen the opposite. I think more people are buying cars. We have just recently also announced a new derelict vehicle campaign, a scheme. The law has changed in Gibraltar. Before people park their cars on the street, they were just cars that they never used, but they were reluctant to throw away. And over time, these cars, got into a bad state of disrepair. The air in the tyres would go, and they failed to pay MOTs, and cars became derelict on the roads.
Just to touch on the first part of your answer there, you said you think there might actually be more vehicles in Gibraltar on the roads at present. Isn't this totally contrary to the government's plans for a greener Gibraltar? And if so, does that mean the zone scheme really is working?
Well, remember the zone scheme, what it does for the first time ever is it starts putting a charge on having multiple vehicles. So, for example, to park one car, it'll cost you anything between 8p and 16p a day, depending if you're a pensioner or whether you're not a pensioner. And successive cars after that, the fee doubles. So what we're doing is, if you have a second car, then it becomes 32 pence a day. A third car is 64p a day. So it adds up. So what we are saying is, having more cars than one has an increase in charge. And when you're paying a number of cars once a year, you notice that difference. You don't notice on a daily basis, but you notice. Now, this is why partly the reason is this derelict campaign I've mentioned to you earlier, because a lot of cars, when people buy new cars, they don't get disposed of their old ones. So there may be many vehicles in Gibraltar that are registered, but it doesn't mean that they're in use. So it's difficult for us to quantify and say, okay, the number of cars, there's more cars on the road, there's less cars on the road. There are definitely more cars on the road because our parking spaces are being saturated. And each time government builds more homes, especially affordable homes, we build more parking spaces within. Yet you don't notice those cars disappearing from the roads. There's more cars to take those places up. So I strongly believe that it's just that people are leaving cars on the road, and they're just destroyed there.
During the Christmas break, there was a 2-week period that the zone parking scheme was lifted. People could park anywhere they wanted, and that did seem to work quite well. So other than benefiting government coffers via rent and parking tickets for those who park there when they shouldn't, what benefit does the zone scheme really have?
The zone scheme works for people that live in the area. We will not see what effect the zone parking has until the whole project is completed. Once the project is completed and we have all of Gibraltar zoned, we're then going to be in a better position to see exactly what parking stock we have. So and a test of this nature, or a scheme of this nature, has never been carried out before. When we have all of Gibraltar zoned out, then we may take a view and say, well, let's see how we can fertilize different zones. Let's see how we can get people to move. But again, by increasing parking availability, does that mean that we're encouraging more car use? Because if it becomes easier to use your car, you will use your car more frequently. And we're not saying don't use your car. We're just saying think about other ways. Do we really need to use the car for short trips? And most of our trips in Gibraltar are extremely short. So by adding, this is what we really need to be careful of and look at. It's not just a scheme. You can't look at the scheme in its own right. You have to see what we're trying to achieve.